Side Part. It's like a book club with your best friend, but make it a podcast. Welcome back, crawlers, to another episode of Side Part. I'm Nikki, your bookish bestie, and today we are diving into book number 4 in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series by Matt Dinniman, which is The Gate of the Feral Gods. As I mentioned before, I'm going to be crawling through these books a little bit slower. I don't know if they're just getting more involved or I am just getting more and more invested in them, but I want to give you guys more Dungeon Crawler Carl content, so we're going to be moving a little bit slower. Today we're going to chat about chapters 1 through 12 in The Gate of the Feral Gods. There is already so much happening, but remember, again, you are reading along with me. I have not gone past chapter 12. So all of my thoughts, theories, reactions are just based on the first 12 chapters of The Gate of the Feral Gods. Friendly reminder, there will be spoilers for the first 12 chapters of this book. I don't necessarily go in order, so if you haven't read book number 4 yet, I would advise doing so. Also, these are really adult books with some pretty dark scenes. I will try to keep it PG-13 for little ears. If there is anything that is not PG-13, I will always give you a heads up ahead of time. I have received quite a few comments of people saying, hey, as these books progress, you might need to break them up into more than just 1 or 2 parts. And you were right, honestly. I feel like there are just so many moving parts and there is just so much going on. And as I said before, I don't know if I'm just getting more and more invested, but I feel like I'm highlighting every single page, either with something to talk about or something to make a note of. And I feel like the passenger princess mode has officially just been disengaged. I am locked in. I am locked into this series. Don't worry, I'm still mildly confused, especially when it comes to the politics. I am in no way claiming to be an expert, but when I tell you that this book has become like one of my top tier like series of all time, I'm not just saying that to appease all of you. It is truly taking up so much residence in my brain. So without further ado, let's dive into the first 12 chapters of The Gate of the Feral Gods by Matt Dinniman. And first up, Matt gives us a map. I really was craving a map with the Iron Tangle in book 3, and we didn't really get one, and it wasn't even really a map. It was more of a sketch when we were like 60-ish% away through the 3rd book. He didn't do that with book number 4. He said, hey, here's a map. This is the layout. This is what the world within this little bubble looks like. And to be fair, I think his descriptions in this book didn't even necessarily warrant a map. Like, if he didn't want to give me one, I feel like I could have conceptualized what the world within this bubble looked like. But nonetheless, it was kind of nice to just simply absorb the additional information without having to figure it out or think too deeply into it, which created space for me to really focus in on the other things going on, which I appreciated. To piggyback off that, I think the imagery in this like level is some of my favorite since entering the dungeon. I just really love this idea. I mean, I know they can only stay within their quadrant, but there's kind of this a little bit of an open world feel. Like they can kind of go anywhere, and all the levels have this for sure to some extent. But I don't know. I don't know if it's just like this, like the Dromedarians, like Humptown has this like kind of Western, like Middle Eastern-ish mesh feel to it. And then you have like the dirigible gnomes up here, and I don't know, I'm just like picturing little garden gnomes like that are dirty and stinky, and there's truly Matt, when he's describing the gnomes, like hits every sense when he's just describing them. And it's just like just a really fun level. Like, and I feel like I can actually breathe for the first time since leaving the Iron Tangle. Is it chaotic? Absolutely. Do I really understand what the plot line or the storyline is that the AI is pushing? Absolutely not. I mean, we know a few things. We know that the dirigible gnomes are bombing the Dromedarian and the Bactrian towns, and they succeed with the Bactrian towns. Okay. We know the Dromedarians are these camel-like creatures that took in the changelings, and we know the changelings are trying to infiltrate their ranks, even though they helped them. And what else do we know? We also know the gnomes, before Carl like bombed it, ought to have smithereens. We're barely surviving in their like little up-theme castle thing going on, right? And Carl just picks up on this based on their stench. And so there's just so many things happening, as always, and so many moving pieces. But I do think the changelings are going to be a big part of this book moving forward. And that's just my guess, just based on what's going on. And you just feel like this underlying plot line and this level kind of pushing you forward. Another thing we learn pretty quickly off the bat is like most of the crawlers in this level are pretty low level. They didn't really, for one reason or another, didn't level up as they should have in the first few floors. And Carl's, Mordecai and Carl are kind of going back and forth. He's like, we're just going to assume no one knows anything, and we're just going to assume we have to do everything. And if that is not the most Carl-coded thing I've ever heard, I don't know what is. But I do think this is by design a little bit. I mean, obviously there's like the obvious, like they're trying to average the power within each bubble to give everyone a fighting chance. But we also know that the bounties for each crawler has been double that are on the top 10. And we can only assume that these really top tier crawlers are starting to get kind of expensive for the Boren Corporation, and there's incentive to get rid of them. And what's the best way to get rid of them? Put him with all these really, really low level crawlers. And that's just my guess that there's a little bit more to the way the people were, or the crawlers were dispersed in each of these bubbles. It's not as simple as we just averaged the levels. I just don't think it's quite that simple. Speaking of the bubbles, I think there was this reference to Bubble Buddies, which if you were a SpongeBob fan as well, I think you would have appreciated this reference. But essentially the AI says, once you free your quadrant, storm the castle, you can help your other buddies in the Bubble Buddies, in their quadrants and help them achieve their mission. And we know all four quadrants, so sea, tomb, land, and air have to get, like, they have to free their respective quadrants. And then once you free your quadrant that you were placed into, so for Carl it's air, obviously he can go help everyone else, which we know he is just like programmed to do. And my goodness, we know of 2 crawlers that he's had contact with that are actually in his bubble. So one is Gwen, and Carl doesn't necessarily remember her, but he has her in his chat list. And she's just like that person on Discord who's very vocal that we all know and love and we appreciate because they kind of keep that Discord running and we love their constant input. But anyway, she's become a very good touch point and resource for Carl to kind of have an idea of what's going on down below. We also know Chris has freed his respective quadrant, and that is Brandon's brother from Meadowlark. And I have some thoughts about Chris, if I'm being honest. So he is obviously a formidable crawler. I mean, he freed his quadrant. We know from Imani that he's kind of someone we should be a little bit worried about, but she also has love for him, and she reminds Carl, like, that's Brandon's brother, like, please just don't hurt him. But we also know that he killed Frank. Right after Carl met with Frank, he went to the Desperado Club and he got rid of him. I just have so many questions about Chris because, okay, let me just say this. I feel like we're having all this foreshadowing about Chris, but my guess, if I had to place a wager, I would think he's going to be someone that Carl ends up actually teaming up with, that he's going to somehow be able to repair that damage that was done at the end with Brandon. And my only concern, though, is that we know because Chris killed Frank, he's no longer allowed in the Desperado Club. So if Carl does team up with him, it's going to make it much harder to meet up with him, as either they're on this level or future levels. Like, they actually would have to physically stay together as a party because they can't just both enter a Desperado Club and meet up on a level anymore. So I'm actually, I don't know, I'm intrigued to see how this relationship is going to play out moving forward. I don't think it's by happenstance that he's been in this bubble. I think Carl's 100% going to come in contact with him pretty soon here. This is not necessarily related, but the AI's foot fetish in these chapters is, 1, out of control, but 2, I just feel like it's to me, it's like just like this accepted thing now. It used to weird me out so much in book one, but now I'm like, okay, let's move forward. What cool loot did he give you for your feet? And I don't know. It's becoming a plot device that I didn't realize was going to be so darn important, and it was going to become a driving piece of the plot. Like, I really thought it was just something funny Matt threw in book one, and now I'm like, I actually think this is far more involved than I initially thought. But the loot is actually really sick. So I don't know. I mean, I am here. Oh God, I don't want to say I'm here for a foot fetish, but like, kind of. Anyway, kind of going back though to like the crawlers within Carl's quadrant. Man, do they leave something to be desired? And also the tomb crawlers kind of drive me nuts as well. How, they're kind of just leaning on Carl so hard to not only help them, but they're kind of waiting for Carl to like finish what he's doing so they can come support, like, or so he can come support them. And my goodness, you know, Carl, I feel like has created this reputation for himself in the dungeon, and he goes straight into like management mode, and he's just assuming he has to shoulder everything. And while he obviously wants them to do their job and he wants to count on them, he's already assuming that he can't. And I think that's also indicative of Carl's trauma of just like knowing he could just never really rely on anybody, and he's always the caretaker for like himself and others. And my goodness, what a heavy burden to have to bear. You see this with the subterranean crawlers a lot. Like Katya seems to be like DMing them back and forth, and she's like, hey, I think they get the vibe that like, you know, we're just going to kind of come help them when we finish up what we're doing here. And I just feel like Carl's reputation has been both unhinged, but also like insanely helpful within the dungeon. And now I think there's like two Carls. There's like the one that's portrayed like on the show, obviously, that shows him kind of maniacal, like in some ways. But then there's like this, like, I would say, like, we'll call him Discord chat Carl, that's kind of just like leading just the offensive and like just kind of supporting crawlers, giving them information, like really just driving all these crawlers to move forward and progress. And I feel like this reputation's kind of biting him in the butt, so to speak, because he's just having to become this person that everyone relies on, and like it's like Atlas kind of holding the world on his back. Side note, there was one point where Carl said there was a crawler that looked like a guy in a banana suit, and I couldn't help but think, like, was this like a reference to Peely from Fortnite? And I could be totally reaching here, but I'm a little bit ashamed to admit this, but I play a lot of Fortnite, and that's where my brain immediately went. And so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely off base. Let me know down in the comments. We also know now that Carl has not just one sponsor, but two sponsors. And obviously we know the first sponsor was the Valte Corporation. But we know now that they're a creature called, I think it's pronounced Gandai. I'm a little like, I don't know. I feel like the Valte have insider information. Like they have to, because we always see like these neural enhancements that Carl gets. Like I think for this level, it was elevation airspeed, where he could actively see like how fast he was going, how high he was going. And we're kind of like, how is this going to be useful? And it's almost like the Valte know what Carl's going to need. And I can guarantee this is going to come in clutch at least once, if not multiple times in this level, because it just makes me think that like there's just so much more to this, and like they are 100% just rooting for Carl to, I feel like, burn it all down. And it seems so counterintuitive, and it seems like the Valte are very supportive of the idea of a dungeon. So I don't know, there's a lot going on there that I don't quite understand, and I'm sure someone can maybe help me tease this apart, but it's just something I've been thinking about. But we also know he gained another sponsor, and I'm actually going to directly read the name because it is long. It is the Open Intellect Pacifist Action Network, Intergalactic NFC, which means not for conquest. And Carl's like, what the heck is this? I have no idea who's sponsoring me. And we know it's just like some anti-dungeon possible group that Mordecai's never heard of. And so then this makes me think, okay, one, is it actually like a legit corporation or group. But then 2, they send him like the weirdest like root vegetable in like their little sponsors box, and you're like, well, what is going on here? And then it makes me wonder, is this organization somehow connected with like the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook? Are they also plotting to like overthrow the entire system, like the dungeon of itself? But we also know that both sponsors have not sponsored any other crawlers. And we know Donuts talked about how like Princess, I think it's Donatia. I don't know if I'm saying her name correctly, but we know that she sponsored other crawlers. Like a lot of these sponsors are sponsoring multiple crawlers. So why has Carl's sponsors only sponsored him? And I feel like that's a little bit more important than I'm really giving it credit for too. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Backpedaling a little bit, we see Carl's savior complex just like not only extend to the crawlers, but again to the NPCs. I mean, this is a theme that just keeps coming up time and time again. They knew there was a possibility, obviously, that the dirigible gnomes were going to bomb the entirety of Humptown. So Carl makes sure all the kids come to the toe so he can put them in his personal space where he knows they'll be safe. Because as we know, NPCs that are in a safe room without a crawler are not actually safe, which is just so messed up for multiple reasons. But Carl is just like fully just at this place of we just know that Carl is just realizing that everything in this dungeon is just a victim. And gosh, this was like one of those moments though, where like I wasn't frustrated by his just need to protect other people, because let me tell you, like, as a mom, I think I just get like this wave of just, I don't know if it's empathy, maybe, but you have these like children in this dungeon, and Carl, just for a moment, just gave him a little bit of normalcy and protection when nobody else did. And they're just hanging out in his personal space watching Toy Story 3. And I also, this is totally off topic, but I kind of like how Mordecai has just become like this like reluctant house dad, but we'll talk about Mordecai a little bit in a little bit. But we also see that Juicebox comes in with these children, and she's helping watch over them, and I just think Juicebox is going to become a much bigger character, not only in this book, but I would guess later in this series too. I just feel like Juicebox isn't going away, because the difference with Juicebox is she is so aware of like where she's at in the dungeon. And we saw this also in the beginning with the goblins, but you know, especially in the last book, a lot of the NPCs were very much just like brainwashed, especially in like the people that are working for the Iron Tangle. They just believed in what they were doing so much, like Firebrandy and Tisquick. And once that was broken, they were shattered. But like Juicebox just really seems to have a good handle on like what level she's on, kind of the whole purpose of the dungeon. And so because she's not in a haze, I would venture to guess that she's going to become a bigger character than just in this little piece of the story. I said we were going to get to Mordecai, so we are. My favorite NPC of the week is 100% Mordecai. He is back, and he is better than ever. And he's a skyfowl, which I am happy for him, but you know, he makes note that he wasn't as good looking of a skyfall as he was in his original body. But I'm so happy he gets to be his like OG race, which is kind of cool. And is it just me, or is he getting so much funnier? Like, he's quicker, he's funnier. The way he talks to Carl has just been honestly hilarious. I like that he is just so quick to call him out on so many things, which I appreciate. I really do. But he's also so helpful. And I feel like I said before, he's turned into like this grouchy, reluctant house dad. Kind of like, you know how like sororities have like house moms? I feel like, yeah, he's like the house dad. And I don't know. I just feel like these books wouldn't be the same without him. And sure, Princess Donut is the main character, and Carl's also a main character, but I feel like Mordecai is quickly becoming a very integral part of this series and this story. And I would also be remiss, since I did mention Donut, if I didn't mention my favorite quote by her in this entire book so far. There's this moment where they were like in the town hall, and obviously they leave, and eventually it results in Carl again blowing something up, but makes a comment to Carl, and she says, "You keep destroying governmental buildings, Carl. People are going to start thinking you have a problem with authority." And oh my gosh, Donut, like I said, I talked about Mordecai really enjoying like his just comments. I think Donut, she is such a complex character. At first, I thought she was just so capricious and flippant, and I just really think there's so much depth to her, and nothing gets past her. And sometimes we think things are getting past her when they most definitely are not. She's so with it. I love Donut. I love Donut so much. In some honorable mentions, I don't know where they would fit quite in this episode, but I need to mention them nonetheless. The chariot they built was just so cool. Kind of just like they're like on this motorcycle ATV thing in the middle of like this desert landscape, and I just was like, this is awesome. And I love that Katya is the driver, first of all, and I love that she's so good at it, and she's able to use her doppelganger race to kind of like offset the balance, and she's just turning into such a really, really cool character. And I'm actually like just so happy for her. And I know I talk about these characters a lot like they're real people, because they actually kind of low-key feel pretty real to me. And then another thing, Carl finally got some enchanted duct tape. I am kind of ridiculously excited for him, and like I don't know why I'm so excited about duct tape, but he was super excited about duct tape. Ergo, I'm excited about his duct tape. And then this is not so funny. We get another really heartbreaking glimpse into Carl's childhood, and it had to do with his dad smashing the helmet into Carl's childhood fish tank, and then Carl's trying to save the fishes, and he's trying to pick them up, and he's cutting his fingers on glass from the aquarium. And first of all, heartbreaking, just like horrible. And it's almost like that Catcher in the Rye analogy, like they're trying to save the children before they go off the cliff. In this case, he's trying to save the fish that are unsavable, and they're already kind of dying, and he's cutting his fingers while doing it. And I feel like that's just like, oh gosh, it's just like a metaphor for the dungeon in itself. You have this fish tank filled with these fish, and it just gets shattered. Ergo, like, the fish tank represents Earth. And then obviously Earth got leveled, and now all these fish are kind of gasping for air, and Carl's still trying to save them. But it's almost a futile task. And I don't know if that was supposed to be the metaphor that it was, but that's the way I interpreted it nonetheless. And then I also think it's hilarious, maybe not hilarious, but I feel like every time Carl has a flashback to his childhood, moments later, he's like, okay, yeah, whatever, doesn't matter. I'm gonna go blow something up. And then it's like, okay, let's not process through what's going on. Let's just go blow stuff up. And at least it fits for the dungeon, right? At least he's 100% repressing it, but he's at least channeling it into something useful and also highly destructive. But it's really in these moments that I feel like we really just, can just see how unreliable of a narrator Carl is. And a lot of times when you call a character an unreliable narrator, I think people take it in a negative way. I don't think Carl doesn't believe what he's seeing and feeling and experiencing. I 100% believe that whatever he's seeing and thinking, he 100% is invested in, and he believes it. It's not necessarily always 100% the truth, especially when it comes to his own memories, his own thoughts. I think Carl is someone who disassociates a lot, or, just represses things deep down. And I think it's just kind of something we need to keep in mind moving forward. Like, this is all a first person account from Carl. And I think it's important just to remember that it just means that everything he is experiencing doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% the truth. I know Matt Dinniman has also commented on this himself. He's like, well, of course he's an unreliable narrator. Like, why wouldn't he be? And I think sometimes we need to remember this too. Like, it's almost impossible as a person to 100% be objective anyway, right? Like, if I was telling a story, there's no way it would be 100% rooted in truth. It's my own experience. It's how I process things. And so, yeah, I just think it's something also important to kind of make a mental note of moving forward in the story. Some looming questions I have moving forward. One, what is the Gate of the Feral Gods? I mean, the names got dropped multiple times, but I still have no clue what the heck it is. I do think like those weird pocket watch artifact things are going to become very important. And if I had to venture to guess, this gate is going to lead to the next floor and impact it in some way. I could be wrong. I mean, I feel like this book always just does something out of pocket. Every book does something out of pocket, but whatever. That's my guess. And I'm only 33% in, so I can make these guesses and then backpedal in the next two episodes. Zev, what's going on with Zev? A little concerned about that. We ended these chapters and Zev is not herself, and she has definitely been reprogrammed or whatever. And I might be more concerned than Donut, to be honest. I really like Zev. I didn't think I'd like Zev, but I really like Zev. And then another thing is Chris, as deranged as he's being portrayed. I don't know. I don't think he is. I think maybe, yeah, there's some implications for the race he chose, and it's probably impacting his personality, but I don't know. I might be putting too much on Carl's shoulders, but I think he can change him. Will Carl actually be able to defeat all 4 quadrants? If I had to guess, I think this is going to be a book where Carl learns some lessons on how to rely on other crawlers. I don't think he is going to be the savior, at least not in the way that he sees himself. Do I think he's going to be an instrumental part in releasing all 4 quadrants? Absolutely. But I think right now we're just seeing him think he has to do it all, save everyone. And I'm hoping that his savior complex kind of takes a backseat in the story and we're able to see other crawlers become more capable. And I'm just hoping that, one, Carl gets a little bit of a break here, but 2, I'm just kind of hoping for some more character development, because I think that would be an interesting way for his character to continue to grow and change. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see where this goes. Moving forward, I am breaking up each of these books into a minimum of 3 parts. It's just because I want to do this read along justice. I want you to feel like you're reading along with me, and I feel like as these books become more involved, there is just more parts to talk about. Like I said, this isn't an in-depth overview at all, but I am finding that I want to get more about these books, so I'm going to continue to do so. Next week, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from the dungeon because I'm going to be chatting with one of my author friends about one of my favorite series. So I would love if you would, tune in for that. But we'll be right back in the dungeon the following week doing part 2 of The Gate of the Feral Gods. As always, one of the best ways to support this channel is just by engaging with this video. Let me know, what do you want me to talk about as I move forward in this book, in this series? Let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to get alerted when there's a new episode. Thank you so much for crawling with me today. Bye.